Hello, and thank you for joining me for the collective monthly energy update for July of 2026. Before we get into July, let's just talk a little bit about June because it's going to help us make sense of July. Obviously, they're connected. June, when I did the update for that, it very much felt like an energy of being in the cave, going into the void, being in a pause. And even in my own personal readings and client readings and sessions for the last couple weeks, I've seen a lot of imagery around bat and bear, animals that tend to hibernate or live in caves. And what I'm here to say is that July feels like the emerging from that cave. It feels like stepping into the light. It feels like stepping back into the outside world a little bit, which is so funny because June being the start of summer, you may have felt, as I did, as though it was like a time to be outside and be free and lighthearted and indulgent. And yet, what was happening underneath for in June was a little thick, a little illusory, and there was a lot of messages around like uncovering mysteries, revealing hidden secrets about ourselves and others, or seeing things more clearly. So, with June, we are emerging from that reflective mode, that going deep within and being introspective to better understand ourselves and how we can reflect on who we are, develop a greater sense of understanding, perhaps orient ourselves toward more growth or toward our next desire or manifestation without delving into like self-criticism or intolerance for needing time to grow or needing resources to grow, and letting go of that need to constantly strive, prove, push, or fix. So it's as if in July we understand what that void of June was for, and we start to claim some of its gifts, reveal some of that subconscious or secret nature, for our own betterment, for our own pleasure, for our own strengthening. The gifts of July stand to help us transfer some of that work we did in orienting toward personal fulfillment in June. That work in June, or that effort, or that energy direction, that calibration of June was largely internal. We may have been going through things that, from the outside, even our closest friends or loved ones may not have been able to understand what it felt like for us to really choose ourselves, to go after our dreams in a bigger way. We may not have had the splashy launches or hit our targets in June, but we were making ourselves vulnerable and available and saying, I want that, or I'm coordinating myself to be on that trajectory. In July, we are transferring that self-respect that we gained internally and that courage to choose ourselves in our own internal world, and we're translating that to our relationships, our community, our workplaces, anywhere we might be a little bit more visible. This could be on social media or, on the screen, but really it feels a little bit more like in our direct personal relationships. And it's as if we are doing this to help us pivot out of or recalibrate any dynamics in our relationships, in our communities that are draining us, that are no longer giving us life, that are no longer aligned with our own vitality. So what that asks of us is to rely on seeing situations differently a little bit. So what I mean by that is this message initially can come across as like, I respect myself too much now, and if you're not on board with the new me, it's out, we're done, it's over. It can be easy to distort this message as like, just inform everyone of your new standards, and whoever's not with it better jump ship. But what I'm seeing is that there's this harmonization between your respect for yourself and your willingness to be a little bit more objective about what other people are saying to you, or take in others' perceptions and not immediately integrate them as true. There's an energy of like fairness and objectivity and neutrality coming through that frankly asks us to be a little bit vulnerable, right? Because it's so much easier to either default to I'm right and I need to be respected in this new way, get on board, or I'm wrong, let me shrink myself and people please and sacrifice myself. That is a lot easier than actually having the conversation of, hey, I'm shifting some things in my life, I'm orienting more in this direction, or I'm prioritizing things differently. I need your support in that. And here's one way that that could look. How do you feel about that, right? And that's a little bit clinical, that's a little bit psychological speech, but there are ways to have that in your own human tone of voice where you inform people of the new asks that you have, or the new ways that you'd like to be treated, or the new ways that you would like to collaborate, and you staying open to actually hearing what they say, how they respond with their actions, behaviors, and choices. That requires vulnerability. And it means that you might need to ask for help or support in the month of July. And that means being accountable for your own emotions as you sit in the discomfort of waiting, or no longer trying to predict someone's response and then kind of catering your asks to what you imagine they might say or what you imagine they might want. And then this last large theme of July has a little bit to do with calibrating our boundaries in a more nuanced way. It's very easy to think of boundaries as, this is what I need, either do it or don't. In reality, boundaries often live on a spectrum, and so you might find yourself exploring collaboratively with your romantic partner, with your close friends, with your manager, different ways for your shared goals to be met, as well as to embody that self-respect that you've been cultivating. The trick here is to not hold others accountable for your emotions just because you overgave in the past. Saying that differently, you may find that one of the realizations from June was, man, I'm over nurturing something that is no longer blooming. I am giving way too much in my relationships considering how drained I feel, or I am putting in way too much effort considering that the signals are this wants to say is a wee little bebe right now. And integrating that, understanding that may have helped you see how you overgive, how you over nurture, how you take too much responsibility for other people's needs or emotions. And on the one hand, that can feel very comfortable, that can be a very beautiful thing to do, but in some instances, it is a form of control. It's a form of making sure, well, if you're okay, it means that I can be okay. If we're all doing fine and we're not disagreeing, then it means that I am safe. But that has trade-offs to it, and one of them can be, well, crap, I've been holding your hand for the last year and taking all of this on for you. What do you mean you can't hold me in this moment? What do you mean you can't change our agreement? What do you mean you can't meet me halfway? Sometimes people just can't, and that's something that vulnerability asks us to stay open to and work with. So those are the overarching themes of July. What can we expect week over week? Week one actually has a really exciting energy to it. I'm not going to lie. It's giving a little bit like, ooh, right off the bat. You may find that in the first week of July, you have the opportunity to take a little bit of a leap of faith on something. And specifically, it's the kind of leap where you're like, oh, do I get a second chance at this? It's the sort of thing where you thought a door had already closed or something had already been decided and you kind of wrote it off. It's giving a little less, whoa, out of the blue, completely unexpected opportunity, and a little bit more, oh, this came back in a new shape and form that's actually better for me or better for us. Just to be clear, I don't think this is the week to get back with your ex. Maybe you start a conversation consciously about recoupling, but I wouldn't jump 10 toes deep into those types of situations. This is a little bit more like affirming to yourself, I trust that I've learned enough for this time to go differently. That's what week one is offering us. It's moving from a place of wholeness and mutual upliftment instead of like, well, the first time this came around, it certainly wasn't going to work because it had all these, quirks or trade-offs to it. Now that those are worked out, this can actually be a good thing or a helpful thing. Week 2 of July feels a little bit like the application of that introspection from June, that cave time, is actually starting to serve us. And by that I mean in week 2, there's been enough subconscious work going on. This might even not feel like work you've been actively doing. It might be things that are happening while you're dreaming or things that just life is throwing at you. There's been enough of that identity transition or unraveling of the subconscious where you can trust yourself now to move on impulse or to be more decisive without worrying about, well, is this the right thing? How's this going to impact everyone? You're more harmonized and calibrated within yourself so that you can just move and trust that it's all going to work out. A good practice for the week 2 of July would be to listen to your body's small signals. This means, like, if you feel hungry, go eat. Don't wait an hour before you get a meal. If you're thirsty, go get water. Don't do another 15 minutes of work and tell yourself you'll do it then. TMI, if you need to go to the bathroom, do that. Don't hold it. Don't force your body to struggle. Learn to build trust with yourself with those small physiological signals, and you'll see how your quote unquote animal instincts are actually the most intuitive and logical thing about you. They're some of the best ways that you can make decisions at this point in time because you've integrated things like the shadow work or cave work of June alongside being able to see things from that more neutral perspective, being able to be more objective and look at the facts of a situation instead of getting tangled up in the story that you create from those facts. Which leads us right into week 3, where we're going to have more clarity about how we see others from that objective place. It's as if in week 2, we understand ourselves better to move impulsively, and in week 3, we've gathered enough of that like objective or factual data about people to see them more in their true self, their true identity, not the old version of them, not the nostalgic version, nor the, oh, but this is their potential and this is who they could be, how they are actually behaving and treating you and communicating with you at this point in time. That's what week 3 is about. And that encouragement to gather the facts and look at the neutral truths of the situation isn't because you have been distorted in your perception necessarily. It's not as though your weather vane is so far off. It's more so that over the last few weeks and continuing into July, there are lots of energetic updates, lots of collective shifts and upgrades that are taking place. And so that means that there's a deepening and expanding of things that requires us kind of widening the aperture to really see people and ourselves as they are. Week 3's somatic practice is to hug yourself. And I know that can sound like, oh God, why do I need to hug myself? It's not because there's anything particularly bad going on. It's simply that you may want to come back to yourself and give yourself that tender touch, because week 3, you might feel as though, wow, I'm really focused on understanding other people. Be sure to balance that with giving yourself some loving affirmation, maybe even something cozy. I know July is hot in many places of the world, but if there's anything that brings you comfort, a particular blanket, drinking out of your favorite mug, any of those things, that might be nice just to give yourself a little extra support as you're kind of finding yourself outward facing in a new way. Last week of July, rounding out the month, because we've been doing all of this calibrating and paying attention and where am I and who am I, at the end of July, we start to feel more so like we're nurturing a garden that's already starting to show some early blooms. We're no longer tempted by the get rich quick schemes. We're no longer interested in like the fast food, the processed food. It's like, no, I'm willing to wait and tend to this because I know it's going to give me something truly nutritious. It's also a move away in the last week of July. We're moving away from anything that seems clever or the fast route to things in favor of, well, what is my unique route to things? What is my unique way of doing this? Which can end up looking like a secret door passageway. But for us, it just feels natural. Week 4 of July, I have an affirmation and a somatic practice for you. Affirmation is, I don't deny my past or my pain, nor do I let them define me or layer on top of my new life. I was tempted to just end it at, I don't let my past pain define me, but I really get the sense that we're no longer actively replaying the old traumas or the old narratives. It's more so like there's still a temptation to see the world through old frameworks or what we've experienced before, simply because it's what we've known. And now there's more of a recognition like, okay, hippocampus is telling me that this is just the same old thing that I experienced before, but my frontal lobe can see that there's actually some new things happening here. This person is behaving in a different way. This person is a completely new character in my life, and I need to give them the chance to show me who they are. It's more about releasing that tendency to apply an old template onto a new present moment, and instead opening up that beginner's mind, that childlike point of view to see everything as new, everything as its own beginning, emerging from those endings that we've been experiencing, all of that compost, all of that subconscious stuff. Somatic practice for the last week of July: slow your movement down by 10 to 15%. Doesn't have to be the entire day 24/7, but pick windows of time where you remind yourself, okay, I'm going to slow down by just 10, 15%. This could be on your walk. This could be on your lunch break. This could be while you're, crafting. It could be for just about anything, but notice what comes up when you slow down. Does it bring forward this sense of irritation, or does it help you feel more present? Do you feel this tendency to just want to get through it and rush? Do you want to be efficient? Or do you let yourself sink into the pleasure and the softness of slowing down? There's no wrong answer, but paying attention to what's actually there instead of what you wish was there, what you think is the right answer, or the way someone who's spiritual or effective or a good leader. None of the shoulds. What are you actually noticing as you're slowing down, and move from there and understand how to support yourself in that. So that is the monthly message for July of 2026. I hope that it brings you some support, some guidance, and really just some sense of orientation. It does feel to me, like I said at the beginning, as though we're emerging out of a cave and trying to get sense of a new landscape collectively, where we might be noticing new frequencies or people just moving at new depths and levels of expansion. And so giving that some time to settle in, not just in our own internal world, but in our relationships, in the way that ways that we collaborate or work with others, is really going to be the name of the game this month. So I'm wishing you all the luck in the world, and I hope that you have a brilliant month. Take good care.